Hey YouTubers, I got a lure I got to show you. I'm really excited about it. It's not a brand new lure. In fact, it's a very old lure, but it's kind of made a resurgence on the market today. It's a finesse lure. Now you don't think of me, Roland Martin, as a finesse guy because I'm like it to flip and I throw heavy spinner baits and stuff, but I can finesse fish. And I can tell you what I can do really, really well. I can fish the Ned Rig. Here's the Ned Rig. The Ned Rig, you've heard a lot about it. Now the original Ned Rig is just, it's not really original. It's the Z-Man products with this special little head made in Australia, but you know, it's a funny thing because let me just tell you about the history of the Ned Rig. Years and years ago, I was fishing up in Lake Minnetonka with Ted Capra, and we were taking these little 4-inch Senkos like this one. We'd take a 4-inch Senko and we would cut about this much off the line, okay? And we'd put that little 4-inch Senko on a little head, on a little teeny 1/8 of an ounce jig head, and we would call this a jig worm. And this is what we fished Minnetonka with 25 years ago. That right there. And that right there is 25 or 30 years ago. Now they're calling this the Ned Rig, like it's like a big deal. Well, it's not a big deal. I mean, it is a big deal. Because it's really, really a big deal. And there's some really tricky ways of fishing it. I'm going to show you how to set it up. I'm going to show you how to tie the line, show you what I recommend as far as the weight of the line, the braid, the knots, and I'm going to show you how to fish it and how to catch fish. Okay, first of all, let's take the rod itself. You need a long spinning rod. Again, this is finesse fishing, and I'm using a 7-foot medium action rod with a nice, say this is about a 3,000 size reel. Okay, on this rod, I'm running this line right here. This is 15-pound braid. Now, 15-pound braid is light. That's really, really small. It has the diameter of about 4 to 6 pound test monofilament. It's really, really small, and it sinks really, really well. And it sets the hook really, really well, and mainly it has sensitivity. That's what you have to have when you fish the Ned Rig. You need this braided line with sensitivity. Okay, so what I'm doing, I fill the line up with 15-pound braid. Then I come back with a section of 8-pound test fluorocarbon. Now, get this straight, and it's not monofilament, it's fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon, it's heavier than braid. I mean, it's heavier than braid, it's heavier than monofilament. It has a little bit more stretch than braid, but it has less stretch than monofilament, and it's practically invisible. Okay, so what I do, let me take some 8-pound line, 8-pound fluorocarbon. Let me just show you the knot I recommend. It's really, really critical to have the right knot. And what I tie is a double uni. I tie a double uni knot, and that is by taking the two lines like this, about 6 or 8 inches apart. It's kind of thin line, it's hard to see, but what I'm doing, I'm coming in the middle of it like this. And I take the fluorocarbon side and I make a loop right here, make a nice big loop. And through that loop I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Okay, I pull that loop tight, loop comes right down on the braid, comes right down tight, okay. Turn it around. I turn this whole knot the other way now. Turn it all the way around. And now I have the braid side. This is the braid side right here. There's the piece of braid that I want to make an overhand knot with that. A big loop. I make a big loop right here like this. Come through that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like I did with the fluorocarbon. 7, it's more than fluorocarbon. 8, which is more fluorocarbon. 9. I go 9 times. So I go 6 times with the fluorocarbon, 9 times with the braid. Pull it down tight. It pulls all tight together. Now that's about a 90-something% knot. You need a really good knot. If you want to go one step farther, there's one way to go one step farther. I'm a big proponent on super glue, or in this case it's crazy glue. And if you really were in a tournament, some kind of a big deal like that, just a little teeny dab of that super glue right there. Oh, that really helps it out. That strengthens it 100%. Okay. Now, what I like to do, I like to throw about 5 or 6 feet of fluorocarbon. So I'm going to come right here. That's about 5 feet, and that's about 6 feet. Okay, right here. I'm going to cut that. I'm going to cut it with the teeth. You can cut it with a knife. Now, the knot I recommend that's probably the best knot for any kind of lure is the Palomar. And Palomar, you just double the line. You come through the hook eye. Ooh, boy, it's hard to see it. Okay, now I got my glasses on, my bifocals. I come through the little teeny knot hole right here. It's hard to get through there. Okay, I got the double line. I got the double line now through that little bitty hook eye. And I take this whole big double line and I come around and go make an overhand knot. Make an overhand knot and pass this lure through that loop. Come right through the loop. Get it all squared away. Pull it all down tight. Now, I'm just kind of belaboring the point a little bit. I just want to make sure you tie a good knot. That's so important to tie good knots. Okay, I tied a really good knot there. I test the knot. I cut it off. My dentist said, hey, if I keep cutting line, when I get older, I'm gonna have a tooth problem. Well, I'm older. I'm very old, and I don't have a tooth problem. So I've been cutting line for about 50 years on my teeth. Okay, that's the 1/10 of an ounce, or 1/10 of a something or other. It's made in Australia, so it could be something more than an ounce. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think it weighs more than 1/10 of an ounce because I've weighed it. Okay, now here's what I'll do. To make the Ned rig really work and really shine, I'll take the senko again, and I'll cut it about this far. Okay, now watch this. See, it's about the same length. Okay, now, watch this. Come right through. This is a green pumpkin 297 color, which happens to be the #1 color of all plastic worms in the world. Okay? That's Ned rig. Again, this is nothing more than the jig worm they used 30 years ago up on Lake Minnetonka, years and years ago. But it's called the Ned rig now. Now, let me explain a little bit about fishing the Ned rig. That's an exposed hook. So there's an issue with an exposed hook. So let's say, first of all, if you're going to want to fish an exposed hook, do you have a clean bottom? Is it full of rocks? Is it full of brush? Is it full of weeds? Well, let's just say it's a fairly clean bottom. So let's just say we're going to fish it for, say, spotted bass, for, say, smallmouth bass, for, say, largemouth bass. We're going to fish it with an open hook. Okay, here's what we do with the open hook on a fairly clean bottom. Okay? Now, when I throw it out there, I'll make a long cast, and I'll hold my rod up, and what you do is you drag the Ned rig. You don't hop it and jump it and swim it. You don't do all that. That's not the way you fish a Ned rig. A Ned rig just kind of crawls along. You just kind of pull it along slow and easy. So let me talk about braid for a second. You have more sensitivity with braid, of course, than you do with monofilament or fluorocarbon for sure. Okay. The main thing is you can set the hook really good. So I have a pretty stout rod, and I hold it at about a 45, and I'm kind of in a hook set position. With an open hook, I can set the hook from that position. I don't have to just do a power set like you see me with a worm set where I go stretching way out like a power. That's because I'm in the weeds and heavy cover, and I have a big, heavy bait. Now, this is a really sharp little hook, and it's braid, so I can actually set the hook now with the rod at about a 45. And so I kind of hold it at a 45 and just kind of work it because I have good sensitivity at a 45-degree angle. Okay. Now, when you set the hook, of course, it just loads up, and you fight them in a careful way. Now, remember, an 8-pound fluorocarbon is not very heavy. So you're going to have to just be watching that drag and set it about a 2 or 3 or 4 pound drag, and you don't really want to get too wild with the drag. Okay, now here's the key, and a lot of people don't realize how important this is, and they don't realize that you can do this, and this was my key to success on that tournament. I take the Ned rig like this. I take it off the hook. Let's take the hook here. Now this sounds a little crazy. And let's come through just 1/4 of an inch of it, right like this. Donk. Let's come it on. Let's push it up on the shank. Kind of crazy. Let's make it Texas weedless. Let's go right through the side of it. Now we have the hook buried in the side. It's rigged weedless Texas style. And you wouldn't think you'd catch them like that. You'd think you'd miss them right and left, or left and right, or however you want to be. We didn't miss hardly anything. We would rig them weedless like this. It was just weedless enough. No, I didn't. It came out right then. Just weedless enough where it would pull through the grass. It would pull through the gravel and rocks. You could just, if you twitched it hard, no, it'd get hung. But if you just kind of really slow, remember you're finesse fishing, so you're just barely pulling it. When it stops, you just barely move it, just barely twitch it. It just kind of wiggles its way from the rock or the log or the grass. And if it's a bass, hey, he'll grab it hard enough so when you set the hook, I'm telling you, you got him hooked. You got him hooked. And then from then, you just put good pressure on them and really hook them, and you got the fish. So you can rig these Ned rigs Texas style. You don't ever hear of that. It's just a brand new deal. I'm telling you, it works 100% of the time. It's just the way to do it. But I tell you, finesse fishing is something I can do. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy the power fishing just a little bit more, but I do enjoy these little Ned rigs are really well, and it's just a great way to catch fish. Get yourself a bunch of 4-inch Senkos, cut them down, get a bunch of little helmet-headed jigs. Now this is just really a small hook. You'd think that's not much of a hook? That thing catches big fish. I mean, it's a strong little thing. Remember, it's only 8-pound line. So you're not going to straighten that hook out with 8-pound line. You might straighten that hook out with 20-pound line or really heavy braid, but not with that 8-pound test line. And it's just enough if you keep good, solid pressure on them. It's amazing in open water, you can catch a big fish. Well, anyway, that's my tip for the day, how to rig a Ned rig. And I hope you've watched my YouTube videos. We post every Wednesday about 6 o'clock. We post every Sunday about 6 o'clock. And then Fridays, I usually do like, what's up, Roland? You know, like what I do this week. You know, a lot of just the update on the week itself. Anyway, I enjoy doing YouTubes. It's just a fun thing. And I stay current with all the current information and all the current fishing reports and all the things that are happening around the country on just an up-to-date basis. Anyway, hey, I enjoy you watching, and please subscribe. Thanks again.